How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Good, good.
How are
Let
you
me.
doing?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad. Same old. Give me a few seconds and I will share it into the community. Guy,
Certainly.
guy has beaten me to it. How is everything on your end, Alex?
Uh, Great. Yeah. The weather was decent, and I heard that there are like heat waves in Europe, especially in Spain,
Ah,
and
yeah.
it's terrible. It's terrible. Like I don't know, hundreds of people died. It's something horrible.
Oh, really? Wow. I
Yeah.
didn't realize that.
Yeah. So I hope it didn't get to your part of the woods.
I think actually my my mother very rarely, actually often sends me a message, and she sent me one over the weekend and said, "Oh, I heard it's going to be hot in London. Be careful," or something like this. And I think it's going to be hot-ish anyway on Monday and tomorrow and Tuesday also.
Yeah, and you probably don't like have air conditioning everywhere like we do.
No, my other half, she has been telling me that we need an AC or at least a fan, and so far I've resorted to opening and closing all the windows.
Well, whatever
Yeah,
works.
all the fans are like sold out, so I don't know what to do.
So you have a fan shortage. Yeah. Cool. So today we have a kind of light episode. We don't have a lot of items on the agenda. It's been a relatively quiet week. No, not too many kind of news stories. There are a few developments in the old stories, Celsius, Aero Capital, all of that happening and developing in a way. Um, Few additional kind of hack attempts on NFT sites. Nothing new. Same. But this gives us an opportunity to do two things. First, to kind of welcome questions from our community. And we do have already several questions that we received through Twitter and Telegram. And we will address those and we will talk about Beam and what is happening there. So, yeah, everyone is more than welcome to join in and to speak up. It's always nice.
Absolutely, don't hesitate to throw your hand up and we'll invite you in to speak. It's going to be pretty chilled, so don't be shy.
Yeah, please don't. Um, so last week we were working mostly on finalizing the gallery, NFT Gallery V2. And we have several questions about that. So we will talk about what is going to happen next week. We're going to release it on mainnet finally. Right now it's available on our DAppNet, which I highly recommend everyone to install because it allows you to play with new applications before they are released and provide comments, provide feedback, which is very important for us. And in general, get to know our new kind of offering. And currently, there are two applications that are nearing completion and will be released shortly. One is, as I mentioned, the NFT Gallery, and the other one is the Beam anonymous name service, the B.A.N.S or B.A.N.S, whatever you would call it, which is very cool. So let's start with the gallery and kind of talk about what is going on there. Um, it's kind of an intermediate version, which takes you from the old version, which was very basic. The NFTs were minted manually by me every Thursday. And now, finally, we have completed this version where you can mint them yourself, and it's already connected with IPFS. So your work will be stored in IPFS and not in the blockchain, which means that the size limitation can be increased, even though we have initially thought about making it like about like half a megabyte, but already we received feedback that it's not enough. And tomorrow, during our team meeting, we'll discuss what we can do about that. The limitation is not technical; it's more of a kind of. So it is possible, obviously, to upload larger images. It was sort of this attempt to start slow and not immediately overwhelm the caching servers and all of the infrastructure that we have created. Just to recall that we are not using a global IPFS. We have created kind of our own IPFS cluster for now. So it's not connected to the global IPFS infrastructure. And this is also done intentionally in order to start small. But yeah, we will discuss that because maybe we'll be able to increase those limits. It also is done to prevent spamming and denial of service and things like that. But it's definitely just an intermediate step. And in terms of the features, we have quite a lot of feature requests that did not make it to this version. Once again, because we wanted to roll out the basic infrastructure first, but once we do that, we will immediately start working on the next version, on V3, that will have royalties and a lot of other things that didn't make the cut to this one. So this is kind of what is happening with the gallery. Having said that, it does improve a lot the structure. You will now have collections explicitly available, so you can upload several different collections. Previously, it was like basically an author name. There was no kind of collection name, and it was limiting for kind of a lot of contributors. So now it will be much more, flexible in terms of how you can structure your work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and obviously the whole kind of price action and all that. So we will provide some additional services even before the V3 will be out. I hope one of them will be probably a search, which we do not have now, because right now all of the information from the blockchain is being processed on your. And in order to process all of the artworks, you will basically need to download all of them, which is obviously not scalable, right? When we get to already we're at thousands of works, which is very nice. But when we get to 10,000 or even more, it's feasible. So we do need some kind of infrastructure, and we're going to add that as a centralized component initially. And this will allow you to look for specific artists or specific collections or specific works and make things easier. Yeah, so that's what's happening with the gallery. If anyone has any questions about that, now's the time to ask.
I have a question, and this is when do we expect the V3 release? Will it be Monday?
Yeah, I wish. So I'll talk about that. I think in a few minutes. I would like to go over the general kind of.
Oh, sorry, I said V3. I said V3, but I meant V2. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. No. Yeah. So V2 is going up on Monday. We actually really wanted to release it on Thursday, but we still were hunting several kinds of minor issues. We also prepared this kind of migration script, so all of the existing artworks are completely migrated to a new contract. And yeah, it took a little longer than we expected, and we have decided to roll it out on Monday. So on Monday it will be available. And also, I hope that on Monday we will also release B.A.N.S to .NET. And you will be able to play with it on the .NET, and I highly recommend to do that because it's a very interesting application. So just to remind, it's basically similar to in E.N.S, the Ethereum name service, which allows you to buy domains and send funds to those domains And what makes it different and special in Beam case is the fact that nobody sees who sent you what except for you, the owner of the domain, and you can sell those domains on the marketplace. So it's kind of very, very interesting application. It's almost complete. We're now kind of polishing some UI issues and make it look beautiful. One of the interesting things that make this B.A.N.S application special for us is that all of the proceeds are going into the BMX DAO vault. And that means that the BMX holders in the future will be able to participate in dividing those profits. So this is kind of the first application which is contributing directly to BMX DAO.
Nice.
Yeah, the V3 of NFT Marketplace will also contribute through royalties and things like that. But this is the B.A.N.S will be the first application that directly contributes to BMX DAO. So it's going to be interesting to see that. And obviously, once we release it and it's functional, we will also upgrade the DAO voting infrastructure to include those regular proposals. For those who remember, we have two types of proposals, the special and the regular. Special are more like about actual kind of new feature requests or kind of decision making, but the regular proposals are about distributing the funds that are accumulated in the DAO vault through this process we call BRR, burn, reward, or rebate. And we can decide like what to do with those funds, like the DAO can decide what to do with those funds. So that's kind of the next steps in this process. Once we see that that B.A.N.S is live and it's used and it's very good, then we will start using it in several different ways. So the first obvious way is integrating it into our wallets. Quick story. One of the most tired and annoying features we had in Beam wallets was the address book. We really wanted to have it from basically the very first version of the wallet we have released, but it was always kind of there, but not there, not very usable, and we struggled with it. And the reason we struggled with it because of the address structure of Beam in the beginning, where we did not have offline addresses at all, was that always create a new SBBS address in order to create a transaction. And now, like, which address do you use? So it was always kind of, we really wanted to have it, but it was never kind of really fitting into our address model. So we did add it, and it's even here, I think, in the last version, the latest version, you have this icon at the bottom saying address book, but it's not really very usable, and that's why I think most people do not really use it or even aware that it exists. However, with B.A.N.S, we now have a new opportunity to create a much better version of this address book because you know the domain of someone and you can send them funds. And once again, it preserves privacy on the identity level so that, at least nobody else can see what was sent. Yep. And we can integrate B.A.N.S into both the address book and into the transaction send dialog. So you can type a name of the domain instead of the address and it will work. So this is an obvious integration that we will kind of start working on once B.A.N.S is live. The second integration is using it in all kinds of games, whether it's something like Red Envelope, which is very popular on our community channels, basically distributing some presents and beams and very nice applications that we have in our Telegram channels. Always creates very high engagement. And inventing new kinds of, applications and games or activities that involve B.A.N.S. And we are open for proposals. Obviously, like if somebody has an idea of some interesting game or something like a contest or any other kind of application, which is not very complicated and uses B.A.N.S for the leaderboard activity, it can be really fun, and we will be able to make that now. So, use your imagination and send your suggestions to us.
This is very cool, and I like one thing that I see with, especially when I'm looking at like NFTs and this kind of stuff, is that people very much like having their identity, like a wallet as their identity. And I think it's even cooler with Beam that you can have that without sort of exposing all of your assets or all of your NFTs and this kind of stuff to the outside world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a first step into a very rich and interesting topic that we see kind of becoming more popular and popping up, all over the place, of having your information and your identity that you own with you and being able to use it in several places. And obviously, privacy is a big part of that because you don't want to just kind of mix all together, like whenever you're using your identity, make it linkable.
Yep.
So yeah, I totally agree. Another important part of this that I hope we will get to implement fairly soon is the ability to prove, zero knowledge style ownership of some things or kind of membership in some clubs or whatever without actually revealing who you are. Like, for example, I want to be able to prove that I have a certain type of NFT. Let's say I bought a Beanbot and I want to prove that I am the part of Beanbot Club without revealing which Beanbot I have and who I am. So that can be possible, right, using this technology, which is very cool.
Absolutely. This is another thing that I think is with what I was saying about like the real like of having one's sort of identity as a wallet and being able to share like certain information that they choose to, whether it's with how you mentioned as like a zero knowledge proofs or sort of being able to display certain NFTs like attached to either the address or the band's like address or this kind of thing. I think is really cool. There was a question that was somewhat related to this about the NFT marketplace. Let me find it. It is from Unseen Shadow King, and I thought it was not a dumb question, or to say so. And the question was like on what or where the computers, like what computers is the IPFS storage kind of stored on? And is it distributed like a blockchain?
No, it's a great question actually, and it is not IPFS is a very interesting piece of technology, and it's not a blockchain, but it is distributed. So I will not go too much into like too deep technical details. First of all, because I don't necessarily know all of them, but in general, IPFS is stored on every machine where you install the IPFS node, right? IPFS node, it's not related to a blockchain that existed long before the blockchain, I think. And it's basically you allocate some storage on your machine and you run a small server. And this server connects to other servers from the IPFS ecosystem. What you're doing is let's say you want to upload a file. You want to upload an NFT, right? So let's go through this flow. I think it will be a good illustration of how it works. So once you upload your image, first of all, it goes to your local IPFS node, which is running together with your Beam desktop wallet. And this is what we meant by IPFS integration. All of these services bundled together and operating synchronously when you open your Beam desktop wallet. So now you have this file in the local IPFS storage on your machine. Now in IPFS, each item receives a unique URL, so to speak, a unique locator. And from this point, two things happen. First of all, even before, let's put the blockchain aside for a second. The IPFS node on your machine goes to nodes that says, oh, hey, I have this new file. Just, write down the URL of this file so that you know that I have it. Okay? No data is being sent yet.
Yeah.
And then what happens is that when somebody is looking for this file, all of the IPFS nodes in the system, and it can be kind of the global IPFS system or a local network that you established, they say, oh, yeah, I know this file. It's on his machine, on that guy's machine. Let's say on Unseen Shadow King's machine, right? And so they know how to direct the request for this file to anyone who needs it, and this file is downloaded directly from the Unseen Shadow King's machine to whoever requires it. Obviously, there is an issue here that it can be a laptop, or it can be powered down, and the file can be not available, right? And in this case, like you basically will have an NFT without an image, because we will either have to wait until the Shadow King comes again or whatever. And this is why we have an additional service, which is called the caching service. It's decentralized in a way that anyone can run a caching service, right? It's not like some unique proprietary piece of technology or whatever. But what it does, it monitors each and every new file that was uploaded to our IPFS cluster and says, oh yeah, give me that file first of all, give it to me. So it's uploaded immediately to the caching service. And then it is pinned. So pinning is the second operation that you do on IPFS when you say, listen, that file that I requested, I want to also keep a copy of it on my machine as well.
Okay, yeah.
So the caching service automatically requests all new files detected and downloads them and pins them. So it is kind of the centralized but distributed repository of all the files. And in this case, after the upload completes, it happens relatively quickly. Then Unseen Shadow King can power down his machine and go for a walk or whatever, and all the other users of the system will still be able to get to this file because it will be already on the caching service.
Okay, nice. I have like a follow-up question to all of this. And this probably shows my lack of knowledge, but is IPF in a way IPFS is IPFS similar in a way to the likes of torrents and Pirate Bay and these kind of things?
Torrents and Pirate Bay, say?
Yeah.
No, not exactly.
No. Okay.
So torrent is a protocol for very effective kind of way to download information from many different peers, right? It's kind of peer-to-peer download service.
Yeah.
And in general, can use both of them together, but there is somebody who holds the seeders, right? When you go to a torrent site to download, completely legitimate Linux distributions, obviously. Then you see kind of in the line, you see this number of seeders and number of peers, it's called, or whatever, something like that. So seeders are those who hold the full files. Okay. And the peers, sometimes they're also called the leechers, are those who are kind of in the process of downloading file right now. And instead of all the people who want to download the file going to a single location, and all of them download this file from the same location, what they're doing instead, they're looking for pieces of that file from the closest peers who already have it. So let's say the first guy goes to the seeder, takes a few pieces, but the second guy who wants to download a girl and joins in, he can now download some of the pieces from the first guy and some of them from the seeder, and the third one, once again, can download from all of the peers now. And this means that you need at least one seeder that holds the full file. Otherwise, you might end up with kind of missing pieces of the file. Yeah. But once you have one seeder, you can now download it both from him and those who download it also from the same place. And this means that your overall download process is quicker. It's much more it's easier on the bandwidth of whoever holds the file, because not everyone is downloading and piling on their bandwidth to download it. And this is what makes it work with regular ADSL connections instead of powerful data service with like dedicated T1 lines or whatever. And this is what made it so popular, because now you can suddenly download much quicker and from kind of a wide variety of peers. So this is like the Pirate Bay is actually just a repository of links. It doesn't hold any data whatsoever.
Okay, yeah.
It just holds the links to those seeders and peers. It was very I would say fascinating, but it's also sad. The story of, if you didn't watch the movie about the Pirate Bay, please go and watch this beautiful documentary. I don't remember like the exact name, but I will find it and I will post a link because they were charged. I think it was in Sweden. I'm not sure, but they were charged and they were jailed, some of them. The one of the key arguments in the defense, I think, was that Google is actually doing exactly the same thing.
That's what I was gonna say. Is Pirate Bay, from like your description, sounded very similar to what Google does. It just gives you like results from what your search is
Yeah.
and links you
So
to it.
the amazing thing is, like, if you go to Google right now and you
Mm.
type in any name of any TV show or movie with the word torrent at the end, you will
Mm.
find almost to those torrents.
Yeah.
Like, what is the difference? And I think the difference was that Google also does like other things, and this site was kind of only for this pirating stuff. So there is some like very strange, legal arguments that make no sense to regular people. But yeah, but people actually went to jail behind it. It still exists and is still operational, but it's a very interesting story. Highly recommended. And yeah, so this is the torrent. The IPFS stands for Interplanetary File System, and it's basically a distributed file system. And the idea is that you only pin things that you want to kind of have access to, right? But
Yeah.
everything can be found through this decentralized hash table and storage. And there are a lot of organizations, both profit and non-profit, that run these types of caching services and indexing services on the global IPFS, um, just as a kind of a service to the community or for some specific types of files or projects. So yeah, it kind of works, and it's a very. I think when was it established? I don't even remember. Let me check it out real quick. Like, it's a very old project. It's very stable. It has a lot of contributors. Ba, 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 bam. Yeah. So the alpha version was launched in 2000.
Okay.
Yeah, and since then it's like becoming even more popular.
Mm.
Yeah. So Filecoin, for example, is based on IPFS, and there are, in addition to that, also several projects that take this similar concept, kind of more modern, with blockchain integration. So the blockchain actually allows for several things. First of all, it allows obviously for tokenomics, so you can pay for the services provided,
Yeah.
which makes it, yeah, economically feasible to maintain these large distributors. But also interesting features like proof of origin, right? Who was the first who created this file? Who was the first who uploaded it, and things like that. Yeah, so it's pretty popular. So we chose it because it was kind of in a way just and it didn't require us to integrate with different blockchain projects, even though we did consider working with other protocols that are already, but we didn't want to go into complications related to integrating a new token and all that. So we just took the plain vanilla IPFS for
Yeah.
now. But it's a completely a flexible design and architecture, right? So you basically can replace that, semicolon / protocol with any other, and you can store your work or in the future other items and different. So yeah, great question. Very, very, very
The,
nice.
there is a follow-up question from Unseen Shadow
Mm-hmm.
King, and it's, does this mean that at least one node is online with all NFTs?
At least one node is online. Yeah, with like a single node does not necessarily need to have all of the NFTs, but The sum of all online nodes should have all on NFTs. Yes.
Yeah, each NFT should have a node that's online for the data to be available. Is that right?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, cool. And you mentioned IPFS and Filecoin, and these two come from the same I don't know if it's a company, the same like developers, right?
I think so, but I'm not 100% sure. Let me check.
No problem.
Probably.
I just read that off Google anyway.
I
Protocol
see.
Labs, I think. But there was like a lot of talk when we mentioned integrating IPFS and some mentions of like other protocols that were also available, like you mentioned, with like their own tokens and this kind of stuff to pay
Hmm.
for data storage and this kind of thing. Uh, and I guess I have a question about this. Do you expect in V3 or V4 or whatever in the future to be able to, rather than using IPFS, to use alternative kind of protocols to upload?
So I honestly do not know because it will depend on several kind of aspects. It will depend on the like how well the current design will work, how much demand will there be, what will be the reliability of these caching services, and like
Yeah.
eventually somebody needs to pay for them, and like it all depends. But what I do believe is that it will like there will come a time, probably in like I don't know, maybe not in several months, but certainly uh, pretty soon, where you will need a reliable system for kind of interchain tokenomics, where you can pay for certain services provided by one chain from the users that are using this integration from another chain.
Okay. Yeah.
Because if you come to think about it, like there are a lot of needs in general, right? You need the storage. By the way, we talked about it, I think, the last time when you asked about the optimistic rollups, if you remember, and we mentioned the data availability layer, right?
Yeah.
So this is exactly the same problem in a way because you need some reliable external data storage to store all of that information that kind of is the basis for the rollups, right? You need it. And obviously, it cannot be completely free. So you do need some kind of accounting on blockchain to make sure that this information is there, reliable, and is being paid for by whoever is using these rollups, right? So it's kind of the similar idea. So data availability is becoming a bigger and bigger problem in general for the blockchains. And I think this is kind of where this entire space is going, right? So
Yeah.
everyone provides a service, and you need to find a way to pay for that properly.
And this like as I understand it anyway, on like a low level, IPFS is kind of the protocol that allows like people to store data and information and to share it, to send to other people. Whereas IPFS is kind of more about like what we mentioned last time about the data availability and like persistently having access to that data. Is that kind of?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting discussion. Like I will just kind of mention a few points that come to my mind, but I don't know if I want to go too deep. But tell me if you do want to go too deep because it's a very interesting question. Let me tell you why. So when you are storing data, uh, this data can have different requirements. For example, it can be an archive of your old baby pictures, right? Which is great because
Yeah.
baby pictures are very important, but it's something that you want it safe, so you don't want to lose it, obviously, but it's not something that you need quickly, right? Like very like few times in my life there was a situation when I really needed like my baby picture like right now, okay?
Mm.
Like in 5 seconds, like I need a baby picture of myself, like urgently.
Yeah.
Which means that it's good for this kind of long-term storage where you store like your old stuff, which you rarely access. On the other hand, if you're streaming your favorite song from like a service, you need this information right now. You need it streamable. You need it available. Basically, you need it kind of in cache, right? In CDN. You want to, but when you click on a button to play a song, the last thing you do, you want to wait like a couple of minutes for some very slow storage to find it and then unpack it and then send it somewhere. So what I'm saying is that there is like different requirements and criteria for different types of information. And also there is this kind of, let's think about it for a second. There is a lot of information that you don't really need. And the reason you still have this information is because the current Web 2 model, all of these services like Google and whatever, they actually encourage you to never delete anything, right? They say, don't you worry, we will give you storage. We will give you storage for free, more than you need. And if you need more, we will give it to you for like a few dollars. Just put all of your information here, never delete anything. Don't worry. And the the back end of that is that, in the agreement that you have signed, we kind of told you that we're going to use that for machine learning and image recognition and whatever. Like we're going to learn about you and give you great ads of Viagra or whatever. So this is kind of the old model. And like in Gmail, for example, like first of all, you hardly ever delete anything, but also when you delete it, it's not really deleted and nobody cares.
Yeah.
So then there was this whole kind of right to button thingy and GPRS and all of this GPRS. Obviously, that regulation about kind of privacy and the data, laws and all of the stuff. So you kind of had this right to ask the company to delete your data for real now, because otherwise they are in infringement of some European law. And in reality, you could have deleted a lot of this stuff just forever, and you probably would not have missed it. So I believe that in this kind of new blockchain Web3 world of decentralized storage, your attitude towards the data that you store will be different, right? Maybe you will store less, junk, binary junk than you would in the Web2 world.
Yeah, this makes sense. I mean, like I always, especially about what you mentioned about like you delete it, but it's not deleted, and that kind of goes back to a little bit to do with Unseen Shadow King's question about like where's the stuff on IPFS stored, and I sort of thought about, I was having a conversation with my girlfriend the other day about like the cloud, and there's no like cloud where computer computation and stuff is stored, and a magical cloud is just someone else's computer, and you can push delete on your computer, but they don't necessarily have to or necessarily do kind of delete it on their end.
So I was working at some point, short time for a company that dealt with selling tickets to like flights and stuff like that. So basically, what you have backups, right? You have periodic backups. So whenever the client comes and says, "Listen, I want to be deleted," it means that it also needs to be deleted from the backups, which is like very difficult to do, almost impossible. So nobody does that. And then if something happens and you restore the backup, you need kind of to remember who was the guy who requested to be removed, and then remove them from the backup so they don't sue you. But in reality, what it means is that when you ask to be deleted, you are usually deleted from this kind of active set of data, which is currently used. But somewhere there is a backup which still holds this information. And as we know from our experience, if the information is there, it will kind of be there forever. So yeah, it's kind of a show, right? Just like everything else.
Yeah, I just remembered a very funny story that I have about like kind of not even that related to this, but I bought a new computer. I think it was in 2017, and I had a very old and very strange like coin wallet on the computer. I went and bought a new one. I put the wallet onto the computer okay, everything's going good. And then I somehow thought like, oh, I only got, I think it was like about the hard drive. I thought, oh, I only got like a 125 gigabyte hard drive. I should get the next bigger one just in case, whatever. And I took it was an Apple. I took the MacBook back to the shop and said like, hey, can you can I change it for the one higher up? And they said, yeah, sure. And I said like specifically to the guy, like, can wipe everything from the computer now, like in front of me. And he did it, and then I left, and then I got back with the new computer, and I opened it up, and then for some reason, like I deleted the wallet from my old computer, so now the wallet was on the one that I'd returned, and I couldn't like I'd lost all my money essentially on that wallet, and it was I guess I can say it was like Skycoin or something like this. I think the one John McAfee got a tattoo of, and then I thought, oh shit, like I've made a huge mistake for buying Skycoin. Secondly, like losing it all to the Apple Store, and I went back there and said to them like, hey, this is what happened, blah 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 blah, and they're like, oh yeah, no problem. And they got the old computer out, and like although they'd deleted everything, they like not deleted anything and could access it, and I got into it and sent my stuff back to myself.
So yeah, like basically, since I'm like very old, uh, I used to have these kind of, well, I think it was like DOS or like early versions of something, programs that would delete things for real. Because when you just delete things, all it does is basically goes and puts a zero in some like table of files, and you just don't see them, even though the data is still there. But
Yeah.
then there is like a special program that goes rewrites every byte on the hard drive with like some random stuff, so it like really deletes it. So yeah, it's deleting things is non-trivial, right? It's very difficult. Like my personal approach to life is like, if the information is on the internet, that's it, like forever. You whatever you do, forget it. It's either like there or not. If it's there, you can forget about ever retrieving it. So internet forgets absolutely nothing. Yeah. So I agree. It's an issue. By the way, like when we talk about kind of these like Web3 applications now, it's very important to understand like what privacy means in this regard, like what kind of access you allow and to what, right? So once again, that it's better to learn. Don't expose yourself to all kinds of exploits through all this technology.
Yeah, absolutely. We have
So yeah,
we had some like questions also shared earlier in the chat and on Twitter. Run through them before we run out of time and this kind of stuff. And as I am, my profession is the question asker, I shall ask them, and I hope that you, Alex, can answer them. The first one is from Unseen Shadow King again. And he wanted to ask about the high frequency transactions or HFTX. And is there any testing going on at the moment, or are there any results out on the testing?
Yeah, so it's a great question. The short answer is no. I don't have the exact numbers right now, but I would like to kind of explain, because this name, high frequency transactions, I like it, but it's a little bit misleading in one regard. So the high frequency transactions are very application specific, and the way they work is that you are basically sampling the mempool, right? And whenever you see a new transaction in the mempool, is when you can understand what it's trying to do and vision whether you want to take it into consideration or not when you are preparing your next transaction. So I will ask the team to do some testing on a specific application because up until now, none of the applications that we talked about are actually using this feature. We do expect applications that are going to use it fairly soon. Probably, like once again, I'm not sure 100%, but the stablecoin probably is going to use one. But we will do a test. So the way transactions are propagated in Beam is using like node-to-node kind of broadcast communications with the Dandelion. So the moment the transaction arrives into the mempool, right, you can now see and try to anticipate what the impact of that transaction will be even before it is mined. That's kind of the principle of the high-frequency transactions. It means that, for example, if two people are trying to liquidate the same position in the stablecoin, right, or in the pool, or doing the same thing, in Ethereum, for example, you would send your transaction, somebody else would send his transaction or her transaction, and one of those transactions would fail, right? So you would pay fees and nothing would have happened. For the high frequency, you basically see that the transaction is in the pool before you are even kind of sending yours. So first of all, even if you would have sent it, you wouldn't have paid fees because in Beam you don't pay fees for failed transactions, which is very cool. But you not send it, you will actually take into consideration the impact of the previous transaction and say, oh, you're liquidating that position, no problem, I'll liquidate the next one. So you can kind of make decisions on the fly even before the block is mined. So this is kind of the point of high frequency. We will try to construct some tests to show, how, like, to illustrate how it works. But when we talk about applications that like properly, let's say you have some application with high transaction volume, right?
Yep.
It just basically saves you a lot of time in terms of like when you are doing DeFi trading, because you will never send a transaction that is pointless, right, and or will be outdated in terms of the operation you're trying to perform. Okay, so this is kind of the answer for now, but we will try to provide a good illustration of that. There was also another question that I saw. Oh, there were two actually. There was one about the tutorials, right?
One about the tutorials and one about also confidential assets and the use cases and this kind of stuff.
Okay, so let's start with the confidential assets, and then I will spend the last 10 minutes apologizing for the tutorials. Okay, so confidential assets can ways. They can be created through a wallet, which basically means you say, hello, I'm X amount of coins. I can always mint more, or I can always destroy the ones that I have in my wallet. Obviously, you create a verbal contract for now and say, listen, I'm only going to mint 1,000 of these coins and I will never mint anymore. Technically, you can, but you won't because you promised. And anyone will be able to see that you broke your promise because the minting operations are visible. Like when the new minted, it can be clearly seen in the Blockchain Explorer. And then you use this in either off-chain application, like for example, you use it as a utility token, or with some kind of meaning, either monetary or non-monetary. You can give it to anyone who is kind of a member of your club. You can do whatever you want. So this is the one way to create a new confidential assets. The second way to create a new confidential asset is through a contract. And when you create a confidential asset through a contract, it has specific rules that are outlined in that contract that kind of explain and enforce what can be or cannot be done with that coin. Let me give you an example. I don't know, a stable coin, right? A stable coin creates a new type of coin, but it doesn't create it out of thin air in unlimited quantity. It creates it in response to kind of somebody creating a collateralized position, putting the collateral according to specific price, and there are rules and there are laws, and all of that is enforced by a smart contract. And the smart contract is the actual issuer of this new confidential asset. And this is kind of the more, let's say, interesting example of how to use confidential assets because they come with a set of rules that manage them.
And like a follow-up to this, the set of rules for management could be something far more simpler than a stablecoin. If I understand right, something like BMX, where it's more about like capped supply and how the supply is going to come into fruition and this kind of thing. Is that right?
Yes, yes, it can be. It can be as simple as kind of a near C20 token, or yeah, it can be as simple as you want.
Yeah.
Um,
I said simple, but I don't think that's a very like accurate word.
yeah, no, it depends on what is the meaning of that asset for you. Like, how do you want to use it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in each case for is different from the others.
Mm. For something like at least like how I pictured in my mind, if someone like USDT, like Tether, was going to issue a stablecoin on Beam, they would use the first option where they can mint and mint the coins kind of as they wish or as they get funds in and increase the supply. Whereas for something like the stablecoin, something like Maker or Liquidity, it would need the second option where the coins are being minted by the
Yeah,
contract.
I think that in most cases, a contract will be used anyway because of either kind of. So, for example, when you create a coin from the confidential assets from the wallet, you can still run a multi-sig wallet behind the scenes,
Mm,
but nobody knows about it because it's your wallet. And it's kind of from the user perspective, you only see this confidential asset being created. Yeah, behind the scenes, that can be operation signed by several participants or like M out of N participants or whatever. When you're doing this through a smart contract, you kind of explicitly show the community that listen, we have an M out of N multisig here in the contract. You can see it with your eyes.
yeah,
So it's more transparent and more um, kind of yeah, well, more transparent and more clear what exactly are the rules of that coin.
that
Even
makes
though,
sense.
yeah, it's almost the same in effect.
And
Um, yeah.
one of the follow up, I go quickly. One of the follow up questions from Joe in Telegram about confidential assets was one, the use cases. Then, will the team be creating their own confidential asset?
So B.A.N.S is a confidential asset
Yeah.
created by B.A.N.S Foundation. Like I don't know, like what kind of assets do we need? What do we need?
Yeah, I have like very strong thoughts and opinions about like the use cases of confidential assets and maybe this is kind of obvious with regards to like the wider crypto sphere and this kind of stuff, but I would say they're going to be very like useful in terms of like the decentralized exchange if people want the confidential asset as like the liquidity token and obviously each of the tokens there can also be liquid confidential assets, and I would say with what you mentioned earlier in the call about like communities or like memberships, it doesn't like it could be an NFT but it can also be a confidential asset, and and I really see at least one type of uh, like crypto as very similar to NFTs, and that's like meme coins and this kind of stuff, like the dog coin season that we saw last year with the Doge and Shiba Inu and this kind of stuff. I would expect that these kind of things, whether like we want it or not, uh, I expect that there will be some meme coins on Beam, and I think I mean, fun, and for me, fun is one of the most important things in life. So many people like look down on meme coins and this kind of stuff, and yeah, there's a lot of speculation and a lot of bullshit and a lot of like fluff around them. But like to me, they're fun and at least in some ways more honest than some of the other. coins that are promising use cases and kind of never coming through.
Yeah.
I think it's fun. Yeah.
So first of all, in terms of confidential assets, even without smart contracts, you can create new types. Like once we finally update that parameter that we forgot in the last hard fork, it will be very cheap to create a new type of asset. So you can create a kind of asset with amount of one. So you'll have confidential NFT on like a coin level, basically a singular coin. And then you can do all kinds of interesting things with that, or you can do it through a smart contract. But in general, people totally love collecting stuff. I'm collecting Lego for some reason for about 25 years or so, maybe more. And it's kind of taking this to a digital world, and we see what's happening with NFTs. But NFTs is just one example because you can do much more than just collect images and collect all kinds of stuff. Also, obviously, all kinds of recognitions and awards and rewards and reputation, for example, which is a very interesting topic. I hope in the coming weeks to get a friend of mine who is an expert in decentralized identity to talk about that topic. And on-chain reputation is becoming a very hot and discussed topic, like how you create that, how you manage that. So yeah, confidentiality here, in my opinion, is essential feature. It's not like a nice to have because after all, we're talking about your your personal identifying information. It's kind of they're talking about soul-bound tokens on Ethereum.
Yeah.
Like without privacy. Like, come on.
Yeah, like spooky. It's like the name is very fitting. Like it's bound to your soul. Like it doesn't disappear. Even after you die, someone can go back and look at your soul-bound token and what you were doing with everything else and your finances and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't think about that. Like your grandchildren, like one day they like uncover that you bought what was it? A sky coin? What did you buy there?
Yeah.
And like, oh, my grandfather, he was an idiot.
Yeah. What was he doing? The
Okay,
last
so
the last question about the
tutorials.
confidential. There's one
Ah,
more like follow up from Joe, but it crosses over really well with the tutorials. And it's like he mentions Crypto Buzz, which is one of the guys that supports Beam a lot, and they have their own community. And he's shown interest in creating his own CA. Could the team reach out to him and show him how? And I guess this is very, very in line with like the tutorials and Beambot's question about tutorials on shaders and DAO tooling and kind of seeing what we have with BeamX governance available to other communities, whether it's NFTs or coins or this kind of stuff.
yeah. Okay, so first of all, yes, we will definitely talk to CryptoBuzz, and this is kind of the first thing I want to say. Even before the tutorials, and I will talk about the tutorials in a second, whenever you have any idea, wish, or whatever to create anything on Beam, please reach out. We will help you. We will help you like in the best way possible. We will do things for you. We will explain things to you. We will provide a specific project or idea. We will really help. Because we know that everything we're doing is kind of very weird to somebody who is used to, I don't know, ecosystem or Cosmos ecosystem. And this brings us to the tutorials and to what's happening with those contracts. So there are some good things, but there are also some more difficult things to handle. The good thing is that we are very happy with our current smart contract architecture. It's good. It's good and it works great. The problem is that, like when I say it works great, it means that it's optimized, it's tight, and it's like how I imagine the smart contract should be. Okay, but in order to like not in order to, the way we kind of achieved that quality, or like the things that we needed to create most of the things ourselves. So yeah, at the bottom there is a WebAssembly, which is well known, well established, and very reliable and robust technology. But the actual contracts, when you write them in C++ or in any other language, they are difficult to understand. They are kind of the learning curve is very, very steep. So the only way to tackle that is to create tools and libraries, to create syntactic sugaring, to create wrappers, and basically all of these things that are always kind of done for any language, right? When you take low-level primitives and then you wrap them up in high-level APIs, documented and which are easy to work with. And it's a process that will take us time. We constantly want to do that, right? There is not a week goes by that we don't talk about it. And we will do that eventually, but it will take time because the technology is very fresh. It just matures. The more contracts we write, by the way, the more applications we build, the more we learn about things that we can and cannot do and what is the best way to do that. Because we're kind of learning that all together, right? It's the process with the entire organization. Right now, we have at least 3 or 4 people who know how to write contracts and obviously the application shaders. So application shaders are easier in a way because they're like the UI part is very standard HTML, CSS, and React, and the app shaders are a little bit old. The contract shaders are even more difficult. So there are like a lot of nuances there. Basically, what I'm trying to say, long story short, is that we are aware, we're working on that, but it should not stop you from trying to build things on Beam, because just come to us, tell us your wishes, and we will work with this together and we will teach you for now until we do a better work on the documentation and the tooling.
That makes a lot of sense, and totally agree. Like as like great as the Beam architecture is, I'm very looking forward to the tooling that can better enable. I'm trying not to laugh because Rascal just sent a a video to the community. The tooling that can better enable like creators such as Beam.Bots and the confidential numbers guys and this to get on board and really like build out their communities and this kind of stuff. And I think it will be very, very exciting.
Sure. Okay. Oh wow, we're like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Past the hour. Well, time flies.
time flies. Yeah, I mean, like I must say, for me, it was very interesting, and we should, Joe, we should do some live broadcasts. Holy no, thank you.
Live broadcast of what?
I don't know. I'm not sure. He's. I don't know if he's talking about kind of OnlyFans broadcasts or what he's talking about. Yeah, but thank you so much for everyone's questions as well, and I want to like stress that in the future we'll also ask you questions, but don't be shy to like request access, and you can jump into the chat and ask us in audio and that kind of stuff as well.
Sure.
Open to
Yeah.
such.
Thank you very much, and have a great day. And we'll see you here next week.
See you next week.
Same time.
Thank you very much, guys. See you.